All right, the strategic archive for this current window on March 10th, 2026 must now record the official commencement of the overnight liquidation protocol, as the global financial settlement grid has officially transitioned from a state of managed blackout into a state of permanent structural revaluation. While the public retail banking interfaces are currently displaying scheduled maintenance alerts across the Western Hemisphere, the raw ledger data from the primary international clearing nodes confirms that the link between unbacked digital currency and physical resources has been permanently severed. John CC is the strategic archive where we look past the managed silence and track the terminal movement of the world's physical resources. Today's data proves that the paper dollar has officially hit a wall of absolute zero liquidity, and the state has responded by invoking the final protocols of property nationalization, while the masses are offline. The shadow market for silver has officially entered a state of total physical hunger during this current session, with delivery premiums in the primary eastern hubs now being recorded at levels that suggest a 1,500% increase over the last legacy paper marks. We are receiving verified reports from the strategic logistics sector that the remaining silver inventory in the London and New York vaults has been officially reclassified as national strategic fuel, effectively nullifying every private commercial and individual claim currently residing within the fractional reserve system. This is the ultimate conclusion of the Great Vault Drain, a quiet admission that the new global currency unit cannot function without the state exercising absolute jurisdiction over every available gram of industrial metal. The math of the 2026 reset is now absolute. Digital paper is void, and the physical weight is the only recognized sovereign asset. Gold has reportedly touched a staggering shadow price of $20,000 in the private international settlement tiers as the first official nodes of the new physical resource standard are activated across the global trade network. Internal ledger data proves that the world's primary energy and commodity producers have officially disconnected their settlement layers from the Western clearing system, leaving the UN-backed fiat dollar as a stranded liability with zero international utility. We are witnessing the final economic decapitation of the sovereign individual's purchasing power, as the value of every legacy bank account is being converted into social priority credits that are anchored to a vault that our data proves is empty of private unencumbered metal. The John CC archive is documenting this historic shift in real time, providing the only data-driven map for the sovereign individual. Inventory data from the primary transport nodes confirms that military jurisdiction has been established over the entire global transit network for strategic metals to ensure the total centralization of bullion reserves for the new state-led survival economy. This move effectively completes the nationalization of private physical wealth, leaving those who trusted the centralized storage systems with nothing but digital claims in a ledger that is currently being reformatted for total behavioral compliance. If your metal was not held in a truly anonymous, non-bank-linked location outside of the G7 grid by the start of this session, the data suggests you are now a forced participant in a total sovereign default. The only wealth that retains functional purchasing power today is the wealth that has no electronic signature. Digital banking networks across the hemisphere remain in a state of total hardware blackout as this session progresses, and internal tracking of the interbank lending rates shows that the trust between major institutions has vanished into the void. This is the definition of a systemic heart attack. The digital numbers are still visible on the internal bank ledgers, but they have lost all functional link to the real economy of tangible goods and services. Our archive has consistently shown that the depletion of the physical vaults would eventually lead to this terminal lockdown of the digital grid. This is why the John CC mission remains focused on the warehouse reports. The movement of silver and gold was the only honest signal in a world of fabricated financial narratives. The industrial reality of this current cycle is a total and complete paralysis of the advanced defense and aerospace manufacturing sectors, as the physical silver required for circuit-level production has been reclassified as a restricted military resource. The high-tech economy is discovering that it was a guest in a physical world that it failed to respect, and today that world has officially revoked its access. You cannot maintain a global digital empire on a foundation of empty vaults, and the data proves that the technological era is now entering a period of forced resource contraction. The John CC archive is documenting the paralysis of the industrial base as the paper derivatives that once propped it up are officially zeroed out. Capital flight has now reached its final singularity, as the Global Economic Stability Decree has been used to freeze all international transfers of digital wealth into any form of physical asset or alternative ledger. We are seeing reports of private citizens being blocked from even accessing decentralized finance protocols, a move designed to trap the remaining population inside the failing fiat loop during the final revaluation phase. However, the data confirms that the sovereign wealth funds and the global elite completed their migration into physical resources months ago, leaving the public to bear the total weight of the reset. The archives of 2026 will show that the exit doors were only available to those who understood the inventory data before the digital grid was weaponized. Options and futures markets for every strategic commodity have been permanently administrative terminated as of this session, as the exchanges have invoked the final force majeure clauses to prevent the total bankruptcy of the clearinghouses. This is the end of the paper price discovery mechanism, where the rules of the game were deleted at the exact moment the banks lost the ability to deliver the metal. When the vaults are empty, the paper is void, and that is exactly what the current ledger data is revealing in the silent halls of the Western exchanges. The math of the reset is a final lesson in the dangers of trusting a digital screen over the physical weight of a tangible asset held in your hand. Geopolitical sources confirm that the new resource-backed settlement standard has been officially adopted by over 90 nations as of this hour, creating a parallel financial universe that does not recognize Western debt as valid collateral. This is the final fracture of the global trade system, leaving the UN-backed dollar and euro as stranded assets that no longer have utility in the international resource markets. We are seeing the domestic purchasing power of these fiat units collapse at an accelerating rate, as essential imports are now being priced exclusively in the new resource-backed settlement unit. The John C.C. archive is recording the death of the fractional reserve illusion and the birth of the new physical reality. The shadow banking sector is currently in a state of terminal liquidation, as the collateral chains for silver and gold derivatives have officially snapped under the pressure of the 1,500% physical premium. Every paper ounce that was used to manipulate the markets for the last decade is now being revealed as a fraud with thousands of simultaneous claims, leading to a legal paralysis that no court system will ever be able to resolve. This is the mathematical singularity of the reset, where the infinite expansion of digital debt finally hits the immovable wall of physical scarcity. The vaults are officially empty of paper promises and are now being filled with the hard reality of a new physical standard that the state is currently seizing. We are seeing a total blackout of these statistics on all mainstream social media and financial news platforms, as the National Security Information Decree has been triggered to prevent a coordinated run on the remaining physical grocery and energy supplies. However, the John C.C. data is being broadcast through decentralized networks to ensure that the strategic record of this transition remains accessible to the sovereign individual. The rate of currency devaluation in the shadow markets is now exceeding the ability of any bank to update its digital tickers, creating a state of total economic disorientation for the general public. If you are waiting for an official announcement to protect your wealth, you are ignoring the data that is already screaming. The psychological warfare being deployed today is focused on global unity and the promise of a new universal digital credit that will restore order to the markets. This is the ultimate deception, designed to move the population from a failed debt system into a programmable surveillance system where your ability to buy resources is a monitored and permission-based event. Sovereignty requires the ability to see through this trap and to ensure that your wealth is anchored in the physical world where it cannot be tracked, frozen, or deleted by a central committee. The archives of this reset will be the primary source for understanding how the global population was managed during the transition. The 150-day moving average has moved into a vertical climb that defies all standard technical analysis, representing the total abandonment of the fiat currency units by every primary producer on the planet. There is no longer a chart in the traditional sense. There is only a record of a currency dying in real time against the only things that cannot be printed or faked by an algorithm. This is the great decoupling, where physical assets have finally broken free from the paper gravity that has held them down for generations. The data shows that the demand for physical metal at the sovereign level is already 100 times higher than the total available supply, creating a vacuum that will consume the value of every legacy asset. We are entering the final minutes before the official announcement of the new monetary standard, where the world is waiting in silence to see the form of the global administrative reboot. Reports from the private security industry indicate that the primary bullion vaults in the West are now under the direct command of a unified military authority to back the new emergency settlement units. The door to secure your own wealth has not just closed, it has been barricaded by the total power of the state to preserve its own existence at the expense of the individual's sovereignty. Scarcity is the only law that matters today, and those who did not stay physical are now facing a reality where their digital life savings are functionally non-existent. The synergy between the total energy blackout and the financial freeze is creating a state of nature for the Western financial markets. As the cost of maintaining the digital grid exceeds the actual value of the debt it carries, the system is naturally reverting to the physical standard of the vaults. The John C.C. Archive has consistently shown that you cannot build a digital empire on a foundation of paper lies, and today that foundation has officially collapsed. We are recording the final data points of the paper regime so that the sovereign individuals of the future can understand the mathematical inevitability of the collapse and the absolute necessity of staying sovereign through physical resources. Stay physical, stay sovereign, and stay tuned to these archives because the events of the current hour will define the economic destiny of the human race for the next century. The global market has reset, the paper mask has been torn away, and the physical truth is finally taking its throne in the halls of power and the vaults of the sovereign. Thank you for watching, and remember to always trust the raw warehouse data over the scripted promises of a bankrupt administration. The clock has struck midnight for the old world, and today is the date the ledger was finally settled in the weight of real physical metal. The final shadow market update confirms that the IMF has officially suspended its currency basket accounting, effectively ending the era of coordinated Western monetary policy. Every nation is now effectively an island of resources, forced to rely on whatever physical gold and silver it has managed to secure within its own borders. We are seeing the total fragmentation of the global trade system, where only nations with a resource-backed currency are able to participate in the new economy. The data proves that the era of globalism was a debt-fueled hallucination that has finally been corrected by the reality of the vaults and the hard math of physical scarcity. Intellectual honesty requires us to record that the coming sunrise will likely see a controlled communication blackout as the new system is integrated into the retail banking infrastructure. If your digital devices stop functioning, remember that the physical truth of your assets remains unchanged by the status of the network or the silence of the state. The trend of the reset is mathematically locked, and no amount of censorship can bring back the physical metal that has already left the Western exchanges. The time for speculation is officially over. The time for direct physical ownership is all that remains for those who wish to survive the transition to the new resource standard. The 150 exponential moving average has been replaced by a vertical spike that represents the final short squeeze of the global banking architecture. The banks that sold what they did not have are now being systematically liquidated, and their assets are being absorbed by the sovereign entities that respect the laws of physical scarcity. The data proves that the world has moved beyond the point of hedging and into a state of total revaluation, where the possession of physical resources is the only metric that defines purchasing power in the new era. This is not an opening. It is a revelation of the new physical reality of the world. In a world of total digital deception and central bank manipulation, the raw, verifiable movement of physical silver and gold is the only beacon of truth that cannot be extinguished by a central authority. The alerts have turned into the reality of terminal default, and the strategic archive has captured every moment of this historic transition. We will continue to provide the data of the new physical standard as the world rebuilds from the ruins of the paper era. Stay physical, stay sovereign, and watch the John C.C. Archive as we navigate the first hours of the new economic world. The ledger is closed, and the weight of metal is the only truth that remains.